In February of 2001, Sujo John and his new wife moved to the United States with just $50 in his pocket. Soon, Sujo said he was living the American dream because he landed a great job working at the World Trade Center.
When death stares at your face, what's going to stare right back at your face is where you're going and where your destiny is.
Sujo John is a survivor, a living miracle. His office was on the 81st floor of Tower 1 of the World Trade Center. He had landed an excellent sales job with the firm there, but he says something was stirring deep inside.
That morning of September 11th, as I sat down on my cube on the 81st floor, I felt a sense of emptiness, a voidness in my life which I never experienced before. And I wrote an email to a friend of mine who goes to my home church in New Jersey saying, "Tom, something's happening to me this morning. I know there's a call of God upon my life, but I don't find any opportunity for ministry." I sent that email at 8:05 on September 11th from my office. I had no idea that in the next 40 minutes, this great tragedy would happen. God would spare our lives.
The first plane smashed into the floors just above Sujo's office.
I just barely, got on my seat when this loud explosion goes up. One part of our office caught in flames, and there were small flames all through.
He and others made it to the stairs. On the way down, Sujo could only think of his wife Mary, who was pregnant with their first child.
I began the descent with a very heavy heart, very heavy, because my wife works in World Trade too.
Then a second plane hit Tower 2. Sujo eventually made it safely out of the building. Moments later, Tower 2 collapsed.
Please welcome back to the 700 Club, World Trade Center survivor, Sujo John. It's wonderful to have you
Thank
here.
you. It's an honor being in the program.
What an incredible story. But before we get to 9/11, I want to mention that something happened in your family when you were growing up in Calcutta, India. Tell me about that.
I was raised in a Christian home, but when I was about 9 years of age, a tragedy hits my home. My only sister dies to leukemia. And that got me really bitter and angry at God. If you are this God, you spoke and everything comes into existence. You are the author of life, and anything that is good, you are the source. Then why is there death? Why is there suffering?
So when you talked about, in the video piece that we saw, when you talked about feeling empty inside, though you had sort of a shell of a belief, you had never really come to the place of answering those questions for yourself, had you?
Well, actually, at age 15, right after, a few years after my sister died, I was introduced to the love story of Jesus Christ through an American missionary who explained to me how Christianity was not a religion, it's friendship with God. So yes, I was a believer, but I was one foot in the world, one foot in the church, and knowing that if I were to die, I would go to heaven, but in a way, doing my own thing, chasing stuff. Yeah. And that's what was going on in my life just before 9/11.
On that morning, you were doing business with what you felt in your heart. You'd sent this email to a friend expressing your discontent with yourself, really, at that point and where you were at. What were you feeling? What was going through your heart and mind?
I had arrived in America in February of 2001. In a matter of 6-7 months, I landed this great job, everything going well. My wife is 4 months pregnant. And I did the damage of reading this book, Prayer of Jabez. Which just
read it myself, had the same thing happen.
Which just messed me up.
Yeah.
And so I'm saying, God, there's got to be more than what I'm going through. All I find myself doing is going to church Sunday after Sunday and going through the motions of church life. And so I wrote that email that morning. I'm on the 81st floor, looking out the window, see this glorious view of the lady with the torch and these emotions running through my mind. God, you know my story. I came here with nothing, but now so blessed. Yeah. But I know there's a call of God upon my life. God, I want to be used of you. And those were my thoughts that was running through my mind just before the plane crashed into the World Trade Center.
I think all of us wonder what it was like for people who were in that building at the time of the crash. What did you think? You feel this jolt, you hear this amazing explosion, you see fire. What went through your mind?
We hear this incredible explosion, and someone on our floor actually saw the plane come in.
They did.
But we thought it was a small plane, and the building shook violently. We had no idea then there was a terrorist attack. We all thought it was a small commuter plane. The pilot probably had a cardiac arrest or something, and it crashed into the building. But as jet fuel spread throughout our floor, and as walls were caving down, and as we saw a huge crater right above us, and we could actually see 10 to 15 floors right above us, a picture of just twisted steel and cable.
Sujo, how'd you get out of there?
We fought our way through the fire. We looked for the stairwell, and we get to the stairwell. It was kind of crowded with thousands of people running down the stairwell. One thing in common, though, the fear of death written on every face. And we start running down that stairwell, and it took me more than an hour to come down 81 floors. And I came down 81 floors, went to the South Tower to look for my wife. Because my pregnant wife would work on the 71st floor of the South Tower. And in a way, that's when, Terry, my story begins. I'm 15, 20 feet away from the building when I hear this incredible explosion. And I thought it was a bomb, but I soon realized this was not a bomb. The building I just approached, the South Tower, was finally imploding and going down.
Wow. You were praying with the man right before the North Tower went down. Tell me about that before it collapsed. What happened to that guy? Did you ever see him again? Did you ever...
Well, I was able to pray with about 15, 20 people right as the South Tower was collapsing. And I started screaming, and I asked those 15, 20 people to call upon the name of the Lord. And the most incredible thing happens. And not one tried to argue with me, not one called upon any other God or tried any other form of religion or faith, because the name of Jesus is so powerful.
So here you are, your tower has been hit, and it's collapsing. You hear this explosion in the second tower where your wife is. How did you find her?
Well, late that day, after I was pulled out, late that day, and I'd spent many hours thinking she was dead, my cell phone rings. And when I picked up that call, it's my wife on the other side.
Wow.
She was late to work. She got into the building. By then, the North Tower was hit, so she's pushed out the building. And she spends all these hours thinking I was dead, and I had spent all these hours thinking she was dead.
You know, you talked about how you had an opportunity to come to America. You were acquiring stuff, living the American dream, had a great job. How has your life changed since your eyes were sort of spiritually and physically opened by this whole experience?
Terry, watching people die changed my life forever. And that night I realized 19 hijackers full of hatred for America and everything that this country stood for attacked this country, and close to 3,000 people died. And what hit me hard was the verse in the Bible that says, "The thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy." And I said, God, if the terrorists were willing to die for a cause that they believed in, how guilty am I of not living for the greatest cause on earth, the cause of Jesus Christ? And I wanted to be a preacher of the good news of Jesus Christ. And looking back, it's been 9 years this weekend, and we've seen God's given me the opportunity to take the gospel to millions of people around the world in over 450 cities. And in America, I feel I'm called as a missionary to this nation. And the story is a tool that brings in the unchurched that might not go into a church setting.
Yeah. I think of Romans 8:28, how God promises that all things work together for good to those who love him, and how the tragedy that you witnessed and the near loss of your wife and child in your own life has now turned into this amazing work where you're sharing the good news of who Jesus Christ is with others, and especially here in the United States. I want to say, if you want to hear more of Sujo's story, we have just skimmed the surface. Check out his DVD. It's called Out of the Ashes. You can find out how to get a copy by logging on to cbn.com. It's well worth taking the time to see. We're going to be back. Thank you, Sujo, so much for being with us. We're going to be back with more of the 700 Club right after this.